Instagram, hello YouTube, Facebook, wherever this is being received. Good morning from Costa Rica. I had the impulse to go live and to share some thoughts and some themes that have been very present for me and many other people in my field in the last few days. So taking a moment to ground myself in here, land here with you, and tuning in what wants to come through. The theme that I invited for today is Hospicing the Dream of the Past. I'm currently working on the 5th module for my online course, Soul Awakening, and at the bottom, or almost the middle of the process that I'm guiding people through, the theme of death is a necessary threshold to move into the new. So the first few modules are about looking at our journey, looking at our shadow, looking at our conditioning of how we've been taught to live, and then to integrate all the parts within ourselves that want to be part of the journey. And once we have done this work, then we realize that there are certain things that also are not ours to carry, that we need to let go, and where we need to hospice the dream of the past, both on a very personal level of the dreams that we had for our future in the past that didn't come true and that are no longer serving us, but also collectively to see where we are coming from and where we are going and what we also need to let go of. I'll share a bit more about that theme on this more meta level in a moment, but first I want to speak into my experience from the last week and the last few days, and it can best be summarized by this accelerating experience of contraction and expansion, of really going into deep states of darkness, of grief, of heaviness, but then also to expand and emerge a few days later into a much bigger vision and version of ourselves, of what could be possible. And so I personally had very deep moments of grief and experiencing loss in a way, of life situations changing, of flatmates leaving, of letting go of business projects that I was involved with, or at least pausing them for now, and really reflecting deeply on, okay, what is actually still serving me and where can I be really of service to life? And then also in my partnership, having a transition happening of being physically separate for the next few weeks. So there's a lot of emotional heavy lifting that I feel I've been doing, and I hear from other people that they've been doing that as well. And there was a lot of grief in the field, and many people are really doing a lot of inner work in order to release. And I think in our society, we have such a tendency to hide with our grief, to hide with this theme of death, also physical death happening for quite a few friends in the last few weeks in their environments. And so to bring that more into the conversation and to show ourselves more, to recognize that we're not alone with this. We don't have to hold these themes by ourselves, and we can acknowledge that there's something collective happening, but there's also people around who are there to hold us in that which is bigger than us. And that certainly is one of these themes that is bigger than us individually on a personal level. So if I speak of the dream of the past, oftentimes we had these ideas of where our life would be going. And what I speak into in the online course is how we as a society had this vision of a world of material abundance that was born out of the Second World War. And our grandparents or even parents experienced the sacrifice of lack of material abundance, not enough food, not adequate shelter. And they built a world where we have an overflowing of abundance, and we can be immensely grateful for that. But if we hold on to that and see that that is the vision, then it brings us to where we are now in our capitalistic society, in a world that is just focused on extractive material survival in a sense. And we are called beyond that, because we're destroying the basis of our survival if we keep extracting and exploiting not just the planet, but also the human resources and the ways in which we treat each other in this competitive society. So there is a moment of reflection required to really question, is this where we want to go? And most of us obviously recognize that no, this cannot be sustainable or even regenerative. And we need to let go of this idea of infinite growth in an ever expanding capitalistic system that devours the whole planet and beyond. And so we, in a way, need to forgive in a sense of, yeah, letting go of hoping for a better past and open ourselves to a different future. But in order to open up and to go into the possibility of even envisioning how life could be different, we need to also grieve, and we need to feel the emotion of sadness, of loss, and to come out on the other side. But we cannot skip this process. So I feel it is necessary, and those people who are trying to avoid that oftentimes numb themselves out, not just to the emotion of grief, but to all other emotions as well. And it causes also all kinds of coping mechanisms and addictions that have detrimental side effects. On a more personal level, I feel that we also are invited and even required to let go of the dream of our past, in the sense that we have had certain visions for how our life would be going, and many of us have probably had moments of disappointment, or at least reorientation and realignment of recognizing, oh wait, that didn't happen as I hoped it would, and we need to open ourselves to new possibilities. But also here we need to grieve. And one of the ways in which I see life unfolding is that on one hand I can only navigate on site. There's very little that I can plan further than the next few weeks, because I really recognize, like, oh, I don't really have so much clarity of where I will be, what I'll be doing. It changes very rapidly, and to be open for that change to happen and to navigate on site. But then also to recognize what brought us joy and fulfillment in the past might not be what brings us joy and fulfillment in the future. And if we repeat these patterns and these habits or experiences, it might just bring a sense of staleness, or at least, yeah, not the fulfillment and satisfaction it used to in the past. So it was speaking, for example, to a friend about going to festivals in the summer and realizing somehow it doesn't give me what it used to give me in the past, where I felt this excitement and aliveness and joy and having beautiful embodied experiences, dancing and hanging out with friends all night and being in conversation. And to recognize there's something calling me beyond that. There's something that doesn't quite meet it, and it feels repetitive to go to the same festivals over and over again and to repeat the same rituals. It has become empty and stale in a way. And I think in many ways, cycling back to what's happening in society, we're also following these empty rituals and going to work just because we went to work yesterday or the day before or last year, and it becomes a repetitive cycle that just doesn't truly come from the depth of our soul, doesn't really align with our soul path. So if we open ourselves up to the possibility of something new emerging, what I can sense, what I can tune into, is that whatever wants to come next for me has a lot to do with really dedicating myself to something bigger. There's something that goes beyond me, and instead of the hedonistic experiences that give my animal body a sense of pleasure in the moment, I feel it's really about a deeper contribution. And I do acknowledge that festivals, if we want to stick with that example, also have the potential for that, and we can actually create acupuncture points on the planet and create certain emotions, energies, frequencies that then radiate out into the field. But for me, what I recognize is that it's become chasing an idea of past experiences and getting back to that feeling, and really recognizing in so many ways we need to move on. In so many ways of how we did business in the past, we need to move on. There's a new energy, a new quality coming to this planet that requires us to be completely different aligned, and how we do things is so much more important than what we do, obviously. But really recognizing that more and more we're called to live life as a ceremony, and to bring a lot of intentionality and a lot of care into how we do things. So transcending also old patterns of working, doing business, is really essential to really recognize that the pushing and working with force is not where the true manifestation of the new is happening. You really need to align with a deeper sense of power. And how can we access this power? First, it has to do a lot to do with listening and with being humble, and then to allow whatever arises. And I think in many moments it's grief. at this point, to really recognize the grief of depth of the situation that we're in, and to mourn that, and to feel the suffering of the planet, feel the suffering of our fellow human and non-human beings, and to open our hearts to that, to allow our hearts to be broken open into a deeper level of what it means to be human on this planet at this time. Yeah. So I think if we're in this journey, if we're on this journey to open ourselves up to tuning in with the divine, tuning in with what our soul truly wants, what does stepping in service and offering our lives to something greater than us, what does that look like? How can we be, a testament and embodiment of the knowing that we are more than this physical body, than these thoughts and these emotions, concepts, and the separate self? To learn how to act as one bigger organism and to feel the connection with that. I think part of it is the knowing and the deep inner alignment, but then also to express that. What would that look like in our actions if we step into a future where we are truly basing our behavior on that realization that we are deeply, deeply interconnected with all of life? How can we step into service, and not in a sense of doing something that we don't enjoy, quite the opposite of how can we follow our excitement and do the things that truly light us up? And I think for me, mostly and more, this is being in service and being there for other human beings and for the planet and for non-human beings, to really offer myself to what is needed in the moment. Not so much what do I want, but what is needed. Stepping into this quality of leadership. Yeah. And so to come back to this theme of death, I think in many ways we're holding on to something, which is also why I'm titling the fifth module of the online course Hospicing the Dream of the Past. It's the idea of not clinging on and holding on to something and using more and more resources for extending the life that is going, but to gracefully and with a lot of care allowing to let go what needs to die. And so to feel that within ourselves and to take account of what it is that we need to let go of, that needs to be grieved, that needs to be let go of, to really allow that to go, to open ourselves to new possibilities. But first, really, allowing the grief to be felt. And not to be alone with this, really recognize, how death phobic our society is, how depression, how fear, how grief are so much pushed into the individual sphere and are so strongly labeled as individual problems that you have to see a therapist for and he will fix you and then you can go back to society. In other cultures, it's very different. That grief is a common phenomenon that brings people together, that is a cause for communion, of really recognizing that if one of us grieves, we're all grieving, and to hold each other in this so that we recognize that that which is too big for us to hold, we don't have to hold by ourselves. So the invitation is to come together and to bring whatever emotions are present to the circle, to share yourself with that and to recognize that you're not alone, that you are here in a space where you can experience who you truly are, essentially. Our interconnectedness, our needing each other, our relying on each other to be part of this journey, especially at this point. We're catalyzing and we're transmuting so many strong energies that it needs a bigger body than the human body. We need to create an interconnected transhuman body that can hold and catalyze all of that. So this is my invitation to come together. I'll be hosting a soul alignment call on Thursday again, every other Thursday. You can see on my website the upcoming times, and it'll be at 9 a.m. in the morning in Costa Rica, or the Central America time. It'll be at 4 p.m. in Europe, Central Europe time. And you can register for free on my website. If you sign up, you'll get the link to the call and also the upcoming calls and the recording of that call. The last few times have been really profound, really beautiful, very deep and touching. A very gentle frequency of really being held with what is. And I'm open to whatever wants to emerge on Thursday. I don't really have a clear calling yet of what the theme will be, but it usually comes a day before. So I'll share more about that on Thursday. If you want to join my website, you see below, jonathanclode.com/soul alignment is the website. All right, so much for now. Thank you for tuning in. Have a wonderful rest of your day.